So, Herman, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Well, the long one, 63 years of age right now, going for 64 by August this year, because I was born on the 26th of August, 1959, in a small village called Haramudzi in Amanskral. I was born a year after HF Verwoerd took over as Prime Minister of South Africa. So you can imagine I was born at the time when apartheid architect was the Prime Minister of this country.
Right. And can you tell us what was your dream career when you grew up?
Well, grew up with, I'm afraid I lived in very difficult, trying circumstances. Our dreams was just one day that we'll see freedom, but I can assure you we had no clue how it would actually emerge, because at the time when I grew up, started realizing that I'm a human being, all the political leaders were either in prison or outside of the country. And in the process, then the homeland system developed. But I grew up thinking and hoping that education is going to be the answer to my liberation, and I thought I would really use education to one day get me to leave South Africa, because I never imagined South Africa one day enjoying a peaceful transition. I never thought it was possible, because if you look at how the National Party had divided us along racial lines using force and coercion, I thought it was not going to really be possible one day to see a peaceful transition.
And can you tell us who inspired you in your early days?
You know, I look back at my life, because we grew up without role models as such. But I think the person who played the biggest role in my life is my grandfather, because when I woke up in this world, I was told my father died at the age of 2. But my grandfather loved me so dearly that I meant everything in his life. And spend as much time as possible with him. And I think the man you're talking to right now was actually shaped by the teachings of my grandfather, who happened to have been an ordinary security guard for the municipality of Garankuwa. Coming home every month and spending the festive season, the most of the time at home, driving by bicycle from Garankuwa to Amanskraal. But he's the man who really shaped me to be who I am today. I grew up in a childhood household, losing the father at 2. My mother had to come and work here in Johannesburg, cleaning white homes and looking after white children, whereas I had to be looked after by my sisters, and the older one was 13 years my senior. So yeah, no, growing up in a childhood household, it's nothing new to me. It's my life. Calling someone dead in my life is completely foreign, because I've never called anyone dead in my life. So, you know, I'm so envious of my children today having a father figure in the home.
And looking back over your leadership career, can you maybe share with us at what point did you decide to go into public service?
Well, I think honestly, I never thought in my wildest dreams in life that I'll one day become a public or be in public office or a politician. Actually, just to really take you back a bit, because in 1979, I went to university, University of the North, Tefluop at the time, studying B admin, majoring in political science and public administration. Second year of my studies, so one morning, 6 o'clock, the university was surrounded by the army, and we were asked to leave by 12 o'clock. And that became, unfortunately, at the time, the end of my academic dream, because when I was at varsity, I was really studying to one day become a political scientist. I really wanted to do a PhD in political science, so that I can get an opportunity to go and be a lecturer outside South Africa. And with the closure of the university, it brought a totally new dimension in my life because when the university reopened and we were called to come back, I'd already made up my mind that I'm not going back there. I was at the time looking for context to get me to leave the country. I was at the time a very angry young black man that I felt, the system is not going to change. It's going to keep on really destroying us. Let me leave this country, go and join other liberation movements and be trained, be given an AK-47 and come back to South Africa, cause havoc because, we witnessed at the time as black people catching hell and white people living the best life ever. So I thought, let me go and be trained and get the Russians to give us AK-47s. But fortunately enough, and I look at it in reflection, God had another plan for me because to leave the country at the time, you needed very strong, reliable connections to leave the country. And fortunate enough for me, the context never came to any fruition. And I look back at it and I'm actually feel so fortunate because you can imagine, Nicholas, if I had left the country, I would have been exposed to ANC criminality. So God prevented me from being exposed to criminality. But I grew up with the knowledge from and teaching from my grandfather that I must succeed in life. And I decided 20, 30 months of working that no, work is not the solution in my life because while I was waiting for the context to leave the country and the university was already in operation, managed to get my first job with Spa Pretoria. I worked for them for 7 months, and then I worked for Motani Industries for 23 months. And during that time, when I turned 22, that's when I realized, Herman, something is not right. You are getting old, and you've got to succeed in life. You're going back to university is no longer an option. It looks like leaving the country. It's not really working. So you've got to do something about your life. That's when I decided I must go into business. But then PW Botha and the National Party said, no, you're a black man, you can't go into business. But then decided, no, Mr. PW Botha, you can control the 30 million black South Africans, not Herman Mashaba. I'm going to go into business anyway. But what kind of business do you go in? I identified an opportunity to be a trader, be a commission sales rep. I felt, let me buy a car and be a trader, sell anything that people would buy, would want, sell it from the boot of my car. But before buying a car, what was important, God gave me the wisdom to stabilize my life. I then got married. After getting married, 2 months later, I bought a car. 2 months later, I resigned. And I started my business career as a commission sales rep. And I've been to one ever since. I've been an independent person with an opportunity that presented itself to me in 1983 when I sold hair care products for a company here in Johannesburg. They had a brand called Supercare, sold for them for 19 months, became the top sales rep. And 19 months later, I felt really very vulnerable. I mean, at the time, as a black person, earning 3,500, 4,000 rands and growing every month because the industry was really exploding. I then felt, no, I'm not going to be someone's commission sales rep for the rest of my life, or allow myself one day for the owner to get rid of me. So I need to control my life. That's when I came out with the idea of starting my own business. But then I had no knowledge of making this product. I was a trader. Took a chance to approach a white Afrikaner called Johan Kriel, who was the manufacturing manager for this company. I then said, Johan, the market, you can see, is growing at a phenomenal rate. Johan at the time at Lenny was only earning 1,006, but by South African standards at the time, I mean, it was a lot of money for white people, because blacks were not even getting 25% of that. So, and I was earning 3,500, 4,000 and growing as a commissions rep. So I approached Johan. I said, Johan, do you know how to make this product? Joseph and I can sell them. Can we go and start our own business? And Johan said, guys, I'm interested, but I don't have the money. I said, that's great. I will go and look for with money. Approached a businessman in Mabopane called Walter Dube. Said to Mr. Dube, here's a business plan. I found a machine to legally print money. We need 30,000 rands to start the business. I've got a white guy who's the chemist, who's a production manager. Here's the evidence of where I started selling this product and where I was at the time, showing from day one how every month my commission was growing and the industry was growing throughout the country. Alta took a chance, gave us 30,000 rands, managed to get us a 200 square meter factory in Harankua. And January of 1985, started Black Like Me in Harankua in a 200 square meter factory. Managed to pay Walter back in 7 months.
Yeah.
5 years later, I built my own factory, spent over 10 million rands. I didn't owe anyone, employing over 250 people from Harangu and Mabopane area, employing all South Africans, because we had to produce. The factory was state-of-the-art factory, producing good quality products, supplying the entire Southern Africa. And voted for Nelson Mandela on 27th of April. That miracle that I'm sure you're aware about, excited for the first time being a citizen of a country, proud of it. Second, 1999, voted for Thabo Mbeki. And during Thabo Mbeki, that's when I realized, my goodness, this ANC is not really what I thought it was. Started seeing some issues, and then decided, you know what, let me look for another political party to vote for. Then started voting for the DA until late 2015. They approached me to be the mayoral candidate for the city of Johannesburg. Campaign which I started in January of 2016. You remember, in August 2016, became the first mayor outside the ANC. We removed the ANC from the city of Johannesburg. I was a mayor for 3 years instead of 5 years. In the process, discovered that the NDA is also not the party that I thought it was. They were the most difficult partner in our relationship, accusing me of being an EFF mayor. And my sin for being called an EFF mayor, because I went into politics to serve everyone. The DA was against us, my administration providing services to poor black communities, something that did not really make sense. And obviously they thought I'm a cheeky black, and Helen Zella facilitated with the IRR to get ANC to come out with a motion of no confidence, to be supported by DA councillors to remove me. Fortunately enough, I knew about this secret meetings, brought it to the attention of Musi Maimane, did nothing, and announced and advised South Africa about this plan to remove me. And fortunately enough, Nicholas, I'm not the kind of person to be pushed. Firstly, and secondly, I think for me, being the mayor was the last job in the world I needed, And yes, then Helen Zille was then elected on the 20th of October as the new national chairperson of the DA, and obviously knowing her to be the person with the IRR and the ANC with a motion of no confidence. So it was clear that they were going to pursue that motion. And then 21st, I announced my resignation from the DA. And I honestly did not really know. I never realized that my tenure as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg had made an impact not only to residents of Johannesburg but to the entire country. Because upon announcement of my resignation, South Africans called upon me to start my own political party. And I said to myself, my goodness, Herman, what did you get yourself sucked into? It looks like yeah, I'm getting sucked into politics. People are now asking me to start my own political party. Where do I begin? And obviously, everything else is history now. You can imagine I start the political party that I started and launched on the 29th of August, the brainchild of a project called the People's Dialogue, where for 3 months, from the 6th of December 2019 to end of February 2020, engaged 33 million South Africans, and 2.4 million of them actually gave me the mandate to start this political party. And here am I, sucked into
Right.
politics, and I hate the job because it's a tough job, it's a brutal job, but it's a rewarding job. It's a job that gives me such personal satisfaction because I was not born to be a passenger in life. I've been really trained. It's in my DNA to live a life of purpose. And as much as the job is punishing, but I think it gives me such great satisfaction knowing every day that I'm working towards saving my country from this criminal enterprise called ANC.
Now, Herman, looking into the future, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Well, I think unfortunately in our country and continent and some parts of the world, leadership, it's a huge challenge today. Ethical leadership, there are lots of leaders, but ethical leadership, it's in short supply. People get into position for wrong reasons, particularly politics. People get into politics thinking that politics it's a place where you make money because unfortunately our continent to a large extent because of the influence of the communist bloc who were obviously the ones who were supporting liberation movements since taking over in 2017 in Russia. They've obviously always had the interest to expand this communist influence and ideology. And Africa, obviously at the time living under the colonialism, became easy targets for this to fall into a trap of this communist socialist ideals. And in communism, it's such a beautiful concept in theory, but in practice, no country has ever actually practiced it and actually succeeded. And one might tell me China is successful, but who do really want to really live in China? China economically successful, but I don't want to really live in a one-party state. I lived under apartheid, under colonialism. Honestly, I think I value my freedom as an individual. I want to live in a country like South Africa where we live under a constitutional democracy, where I have the liberty and the right to decide who leads my country and hold them accountable. I don't want to really live in a country where I'm controlled by the one-party political system.
Now, Herman, these are challenging times. And what is your advice for future leaders? What are some of the challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
Well, I think people must understand life has never been easy in their life. Ever since God created man, life has never been easy. That's why God even tried to bring God to come and intervene, and we've never really been successful. But I think as a human species, one thing that I've been taught is to appreciate this little brain that God gave us as a human species, to use it to navigate the world's challenges or life challenges. So people must appreciate that you're not going to get a smooth life. And things don't really happen by chance. Things don't really happen by taking shortcuts. We need ethical leadership. We need people who put society ahead of their own stomach, be in business and public service. Because I think in business, to give an example, I mean, I've been in a cosmetic business selling shampoos, conditioners, and so forth, hair products. When you manufacture shampoo, you don't make a shampoo that suits you. You manufacture a shampoo that someone will pay you the price for it. And the very same thing applies to politics. If you want people to vote for you, put them ahead of your own personal interest. In that way, in business, people will buy your product and reward you because you're selling it at a profit. If you want people to vote for you, put them ahead of your own personal interest, because then they will vote you into power. And once they vote you into power, then your political career grows and the country becomes a safer place. But unfortunately, for some reason, a lot of people put their own stomach ahead of everything else. And that's the reason why we fail. And for as long as we want to operate in this fashion, we will forever fail. And that's why we end up having wars, having conflicts, and so forth. So I think, for me, I'm a strong believer in whatever I do. I ask for God to give me the wisdom to do what I believe it's right. My conscience is right. I cannot really do something that I would not really like myself. That's why, as a salesman, as a trader, before I can sell a product, I've got to really be convinced the product is going to excite me. When the product excites me, it becomes easy for me to sell. But if I don't really believe in the product, there's just no way that I can sell it. And the very same thing appeals to politics. And when I joined the DA, I was excited, thinking, here's the political party that is going to unite us against the dream that Mandela had, and Desmond Tutu so eloquently communicated to us about the Rainbow Nation. Unfortunately, 29 years later, his own political party is the one that is dividing us even worse than apartheid ever imagined. We're the most unequal society in the world. And these are things that I thought DA was committed to doing. Unfortunately, it looks like the DA and ANC are one and the same thing, because obviously, as far as DA is concerned, DA only wants to really look after the interest of the few whites and not interested in the plight of Black people who've been victims of many years of oppression, including 29 years of ANC government. And right now, I'm excited with Action SA, with a party that appeals to all South Africans. I'm sure you are aware of the electoral support that we received in our first elections, recent local government elections. First time in the history of this country where a political party, just over a year old, with the IEC refusing to put our name on the ballot paper of a councillor. But we ended up becoming the sixth biggest political party in the country, only contesting 6 municipalities out of 278. But what is really quite gratifying for me is the electoral support by all South Africans. We're getting 22% support in Soweto, getting 20% support here in the northern suburbs of Johannesburg. Becoming the third biggest political party in Johannesburg overnight. I think, those are things that, as much as I hate this job because of its brutality, but it gives me such great satisfaction and gratification that if one pursues this mission, my grandchildren will one day live in a country where the Rainbow Nation that Desmond Tutu spoke about, that it is possible to be realized. And South Africa can really be a model of what the world should really look, or it's going to look like in the future.
And Herman, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Oh, well, I think, throughout my business career, spending close to 40 years, I mentored lots of the people who, some of them run their own businesses, some of them are doctors, some of them are lawyers and engineers. Because, from the time I started Black Like Me with no marketing budget, my focus was always to invest in community kind projects. My marketing always directed to community development. I'm a very, very strong believer not in giving people fish. I'm a believer in the concept of teaching people how to fish. That's why to Herman Mashaba and socialism and communism, we don't come from the same planet. I don't want to live in a world where you have government that actually wants to predetermine the outcome of society. It doesn't really work like that. I want to live in a society where you create an enabling environment, but the outcomes will be determined by the individuals themselves. As long as you as government creates a fair and equal environment. Yes, I say I've really run lots of training sessions. Just yesterday, I ran a very successful breakfast session. I run breakfast sessions because all the time I get people asking me to mentor them, but because of my time constraints, it's not possible I can have one-on-one. It's just not really possible. So what I do to have breakfast sessions, and that's something that I've been doing for many years. And now I'm doing it as a politician to actually demonstrate to society that entrepreneurship can also play a role in society, because entrepreneurs like Herman Mashaba, what they do, they create economic activity, they create employment opportunities, they pay their taxes, they don't put money under mattresses, they put money in the bank to create economic activity in the system. So that's why, for me, one aspect of my training is for people to respect the rule of law. Because when you live in a democratic system, the rule of law is so crucial, it's so critical, it's so important because it allows you as civil society to vote politicians in, it allows you to vote them out in the event of their failure.
And tell us, when you speak to future leaders, are there any role models of leadership that you recommend future leaders should learn from?
No, I'm a believer taught by my grandfather. Always must look at myself before I look at someone else. I see people reading books on motivation. So I've never really been fascinated by attending the motivation sessions and so forth. If I need motivation, I motivate myself. But obviously, a lot of people out there, it's good for them to really be motivated. But you know what? If I need motivation, I just go out and look at myself in the mirror and says, Herman Mashaba, you're someone special. You are someone who the sky is the limit, because the sky is the limit. It's within me. It's not somewhere else. It's not in my grandfather or my parents. It's within me. And I look at the potential. If anyone has got to be motivated, Herman Mashaba is the one that has to really motivate Herman Mashaba. But all the time, for me, from a spiritual point of view, I always ask God to really give me the wisdom to take the right decisions, acceptable decisions, moral decisions. That really, for me, I always really ask for God to give me the guidance and ensure that I don't really act in a manner that is outside what God would accept.
And last but not least, Herman, what is your advice for the millions of learners who are looking to leave school to start, work, enter a career? What are maybe one or two success factors they should keep in mind?
Look, I think in a South African environment, let me be honest with the South African youth. They must take interest in politics, because if they are not going to fix their political system, everything else is going to collapse. Everything else is not going to work. So it's important for the youth of this country, if you want a future for yourself, the first thing that you must do, take interest now, before ANC changes our constitution, before ANC collapses this country, before ANC renders this country as a failed state. Because if we reach the stage of being a failed state, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to reverse the trend. So while we still have this window to save this country, take interest in politics. Please appeal to you. Do it selfishly. Go and register yourself with the IEC. Go and do it today. Don't wait for the IEC registration weekend. Ensure that you are registered to vote, because if you can vote as an individual, don't go there as a group. Make sure that that one vote of yours is going to amount to 18, 20 million voters who are not registered to vote, leaving their future and the future of their children to chance. So that, for me, that's an advice that I can give you, because once you can then vote, you vote accountable, ethical leaders that will create an equitable society, which will give you opportunities to be able to unleash your potential. If you don't do that, everything else, unfortunately, will just be a pie in the sky.
Herman, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and inspiring so many future leaders.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely talking to you.